Houston, we do have a problem. Paying your taxes in Italy is not just a matter of how much. Indeed, it's way more than that. It deals with timing, so when, and planning leading to how and if. Let's break it down a little bit more. We all know that the calendar year here in Italy and the fiscal year are almost the same, from January 1st to December 31st. Likewise, we should all know that the deadlines for filing and paying are between June and November of the following fiscal year. So, now let's play with real numbers. Let's assume your net tax basis is 100. So we're talking about balanced taxes. So by June of 2025, you're ready to pay something like, let's say the tax rate is 20%. You're willing to pay 20, or you have to pay 20. This is just the balance. Why I'm saying that again? Well, because here in Italy, you must pay taxes up front. So by June, you also have to pay another 40% for the current year, 2025, sticking to the example. And by November of 2025, another 60% for 2025 calendar year. Getting back to numbers, you'll pay 20 plus 8, so 28 in total by June of 2025 for fiscal year 2024, and another 12 by November of 2025. Total paid so far, 40, twice as much of the balance. This is where and how a lot of people struggle with that. They assume that the tax bill, the balanced tax bill, is just enough to be compliant. But based on the information we've seen so far, it is not. We just started. Now let's move to the next year. Same income. You can deduct the credit for the taxes paid up front. However, you'll still have to pay taxes in advance for 2025 and 2026 and so on, over and over, year in and year out. Now, a very good question should be, what happens if I earn more? Well, you pay more in terms of balance taxes, and the following year in terms of taxes up front. Big mess is what happens if you earn less, or something that may sound more familiar to you. What happens if you have or had to pay some taxes abroad, and maybe you're planning to leave Italy in a few months? What happens with the money paid up front? The down payment, the Agenzia has kept. What are the chances for you to get a reimbursement, to get the check? And when that happens in terms of timing? Well, now I come with the bad news. On one hand, the regulations say you must pay in advance. And if you don't, the Agenzia can charge penalties for the missing appointments, around 60% of the total, more or less. But if you leave the country, Italy may take up to 4 years, 48 months, to run their checks on your fiscal position, making sure your credit is legit. And they need, and this is not a joke, an Italian address to issue the check, or at least an Italian bank account. And what happens when you deal with another country? Let's say the US, with taxes paid up front in 2 countries, with balanced taxes paid here and there. Well, in this case, I'll show you a really bad magic trick, something you think, how is that even possible? Based on the Italian rules, you cannot offset taxes paid up front in other countries for the current year, and vice versa. So when someone wants to respect the due diligence and be really compliant, he pays balance and down payments, but he takes 2 big risks at the same time. One, he will pay twice as much, since the dual taxation agreement does not cover that. And 2, if and when he's going to leave the country, he may leave thousands and thousands of euros in the pocket of the Agenzia. How does that sound to you? I'm afraid, as you know, I cannot lead you to avoid your fiscal obligations here in Italy. My goal is actually the opposite, is to make you think and aware of pros and cons of every fiscal behaviors of yours here in Italy. Some taxpayers, in similar cases, make an investment decision right away on a voluntary basis. They decide to not pay any taxes up front to Italy because they don't know when they're going to leave the country, because simply they're not willing to pay double for that, because they do not trust the reimbursement process in the future, and maybe they do not just trust Italy at all. But this comes with a cost of around 60%. I've tried during my, let's say, decent long career to fight the case with Agenzia, to speak with Agenzia and tell them that this is not a legitimate conclusion, that the Article 23 to the Article 25 of the International Dual Taxation Agreement does not allow such an unfair obligation. But still, every year, they send millions of audits claiming the fines for the missing payments in advance. Sometimes people are right that following local rules and international tax treaties, but still they find themselves forced to pay penalties and interest. And they ask me why. I'm a numbers man, so I think of that as a pure balance shift. Cost for the Agenzia to deliver bad news, to deliver an audit, few cents. Cost for you to hire an attorney, a tax firm, and fight the case in the long run? Now you have the answer.